just straight talk with no chaser. He gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk with no chaser. 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 She provides a platform of growth and gives the dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.
Welcome to the Straight No Chaser Show. This is your host, Rhea Ray Harris, and I'm so glad to be with everyone this evening. I have a very special guest in the house with me tonight, Mr. Roger Washington. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic.
We have a conversation that we're going to have that's serious.
Okay.
But we're not just doing the quote unquote, like I call it, the beat down with no uplift.
Right.
We're going to talk about the problem and we're going to propose some solutions.
Okay.
So Chicago has had this year approximately 1,130 people shot, and out of that number killed, and this is what, May 2nd?
Yes.
Now, that's a problem.
Big problem. Huge.
And on the flip side, and I'm going to have to give you all what my mother has an issue with. Yes, there are problems with the Chicago Police Department, but the major problem is intercommunity.
Okay.
She says, I don't have a problem with Black Lives Matter and dealing with injustice in the system, but we have to deal with community problems first, in-house first, because the outer enemy cannot affect you as much if the inner is tight. But we have to talk about what we have to do as a community and as a police force to bring this thing together. Now, out of the Chicago police force, so that people understand the statistical breakdown of who the officers are, 70% are men, which means 30% are women, 49% are white, 29% are Black, 19% are Hispanic, and 3% are Asian, Pacific Islander, and other ethnicities. Chicago's population, though, is a third approximately. So you have a higher percentage as far as ethnicity goes of white officers versus the population of the city. I'm going to guess that may have a slight effect, but we're not going to focus on that right now.
Okay.
What we're going to talk about is the report that was released by the task force that said that, quote, Chicago police have no regard for minority lives. It says that Blacks and Hispanics for decades have been alienated by the use of excessive force and honoring a code of silence. It established that the department does little to weed out problem officers and routine encounters that unnecessarily become deadly.
Okay.
As someone who's in the trenches every day, I know you see things from a perspective similar to what I see them, because as law enforcement, sometimes it looks a little different on the other side of it versus someone on TV hearing about it later.
Right.
Do you feel that the police department has been unfairly painted in this way?
Oh, most definitely. I'm 17-year Chicago police officer, veteran, if you will. I've not seen it all, but I've seen a lot. And I know that the media doesn't capture everything that we go through on a day-to-day basis. The Chicago Police Department is an awesome department. We're doing great. We know that they're on any job there you have some bad apples. But for the most part, we are doing all we can, and we have the tools to do it. It's just some propaganda and some media outtakes make us look bad.
Okay.
And I'm just keeping it 100 with you right now,
Please.
because I've I've been there. Being a young black male, starting with the department at the age of 27. Now I'm 43. I don't want to take my yeah, but you know, I've seen a lot, and I've been in tight situations, and I've been in some situations where other ethnic groups had to kick in and help out, and seeing it firsthand, and then hearing what the media and what I read in the paper and some propaganda quotes and some blogs is just, it's just not right, because we thrive off negative energy when it comes to trying to win the crowd over, and I just see it as people trying to put us in a negative spotlight to keep that story going.
Now, I know that this is the rumor that has been floating around, and I'm going to call just that a rumor,
Okay.
that the reason that the number of shootings has been so much higher this year than average is because with the fallout from the Laquan McDonald video release and a couple of other releases that happened late last year, that the Chicago Police Department is basically pulling up. They're not, quote unquote, doing the job because they feel that they've been mistreated by the portrayal of the Chicago Police Department in the media. Do you feel that that is a justified statement?
Not at all. I think people need a reason to want to go out and do wrong, and they use innocent stories, innocent people's lives to get their point across, and that's just not right. Yeah, Black lives do matter, but when we focus on a white officer killing a young black male and take the spotlight off of a black teen being killed by another black teen every night, then that's a problem. See, I see it firsthand, and 90% of the shootings in Chicago are black on black crimes. So to put the spotlight on a white officer who have slain or killed a black male, that's not the big picture. The big picture is black on black crime. Yeah, black lives matter, but black on black crime still exists as well.
Okay. Now, for those that don't know, both of us have been in law enforcement, like you said, for quite some time.
Oh,
I've been
yeah.
in longer than he has,
No
Lord
doubt.
knows. And when you deal with crime, period,
Mhm.
most crime is committed in your own ethnicity and community.
True.
It may
Very
not be
true.
the same socioeconomic level, but usually you don't go too far to commit a crime.
I love the way
Typically,
you said that. That's,
you know,
that's real. Yes.
so if a white person is shot, 9 times out of 10, it's another white person. If a
Exactly.
Hispanic person is shot, 9 times out of 10, it's another Hispanic person. So, but the issue is here we have 1,130 shot in Chicago, and the overwhelming majority of those that have been shot, injured, and killed have been Black
True.
and have been male.
True.
Now, I read actually Terry Hilliard's biography,
Okay.
and it talked about how he instituted the CAPS program, which was the community policing program for people that are unfamiliar.
Right.
And what it appeared that his goal was to have a unifying agent between the police and the community so that they could work together to eliminate crime in the communities, especially in communities where there was a higher rate.
Right.
Has the CAPS program really worked? That we've seen that cohesiveness? Because I know I used to live in Bronzeville,
Mhm.
and I didn't see any cohesiveness there.
Okay.
But that was just that one small area. From what you've experienced, have you seen that CAPS has worked a little more long term? Because it has been in existence now almost 30 years.
Exactly. CAPS is definitely a plus. I've worked at anywhere from the north side to the south side, east side to the west side of Chicago, and CAPS is a huge plus, and it works. The thing is, community members who are invited out, they don't come out, and if they do, they look at it as a negative. CAPS was like you just said. Superintendent Hilliard made that and created that for a bond, a positive bond. But if you're not going to attend, and then when you do attend, bring negativity to it, then it's losing its whole purpose. The whole purpose was for the police department and the community to work together, and to put all the cards on the table and hash out differences. But once you come in with a negative, with negative energy and a negative aspect, then it's not going to work. And you're not using it. You're not using CAPS for what it was meant to be used for.
Having been on the street, because you are literally, you're not in an office somewhere under the fan and all that. You're actually in a squad car.
Yes, indeed.
What do you see as an officer that could be beneficial to bring what is not working so well necessarily with CAPS, bring the community and the police to a better place together?
More ethical training, as far as being in Chicago and living in Chicago, knowing that in order to understand Chicago, you need to know how Chicago is ran. I shared this with the mayor and the former superintendent that we need more cultural training. We have a huge percentage of officers who are not from Chicago, who were not born and raised in Chicago, who has lived in other states, in other countries, and decide to move to the United States or to move to the Chicagoland area and then take the job. Nothing's wrong with that. But my point is, in order to patrol these streets and to work and serve and protect the people in Chicago, you must know about Chicago. And if you just thrown into the mix and give an assignment and you don't know nothing about the area you're working, that's a problem.
And I'm glad you said that, because I didn't know that. Because most people assume, oh, they're Chicago police officers, they're from Chicago.
Right.
And even being from Chicago, it is segregated to a great degree, with the exception of a few communities.
Yes.
But at least you have a general idea of how things go.
Exactly.
But to be from somewhere else, that has to be kind of like walking into the Terror Dome.
You better believe it. I mean, just imagine being sent to Soweto, South Africa, and you're told to be the police. even though we're all Afro-American, we're blacks, doesn't mean we know their culture and how we supposed to. We don't know what crime areas or what area to have high priority on, because we're not from there. And I'm not taking away from the fact that you want to serve and protect, but if you go into the west side of Chicago and you're from Iowa, crime is way different. We do things different in Chicago. It's not Iowa when you come here.
That had to be a culture shock.
Oh yeah, definitely. and that's also a problem, because now you're trying to police a city that's larger than the one you come from, and you're dealing with a fraction of gangs in communities and a cultural difference that you're not used to. So if I'm outside with a white T-shirt on and an apron and my pants not sagging, but I have some jerk chicken in my hand, doesn't mean I have a carton full of cocaine I'm ready to sell it and lock me up. We do things differently, and you have to understand our culture and the way of life in Chicago in order to patrol in Chicago.
Well, I know when we were looking at the 3 nominees that were initially supposed to be considered for the superintendent's job, I personally looked at where the woman came from, and I said Washington, right. The state of Washington. I said, that's going to be a problem, because I'm thinking there are more people in Chicago than there is in the entire state of Washington. I may be a little off with my numbers, but you know what I'm saying. I was like, culturally, that would be really difficult for her. And so I understand totally what you're saying, because even with the gentleman that had come from Atlanta, the Atlanta area, and I didn't know where he was from originally, but he had a couple of bad reviews from people that I had gone to school with that had since relocated to the Georgia area.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, so we're down to 1, as far as my mind goes. But then after looking at the application process, which there were 8 essays and interviews and all these background checks, which, may be necessary.
Right.
But then Mayor Emanuel said, well, no, I'm not doing any of that. And I'm not saying he necessarily made a bad call, because I looked at Jody Weiss, and I remember him hiding behind the squad car. July 3rd when they were down at the Taste shooting. That's still so funny to me. Sorry, Jody. And a couple of the other top cops had not been from Chicago, and they were ineffective because, again, like you said, the acculturation was not there.
Right.
And it appeared even that the police officers that were here didn't even really give them the same respect I saw that they had given officers that had originally come from Chicago.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not sure that Rahm's way of handling that was the best. As far as, you had the people spend $500,000 to narrow it down to 3 candidates, and you threw them all threw it all in the trash can. But I understand he felt like his back was against the wall, and this was his compromise. What do line officers think about that? Because that has to say, what are we going through all these processes for you to just select someone else anyway?
Right. I think that with any other elected official position, when you're running for alderman or congressman or state's attorney or state rep, I think that superintendent of police should be thrown in there as well. If you're gonna elect someone, at least let the city know who you have in mind or who've applied or who took petitions and things of that nature to be selected as well, because that's a high priority for Chicago. That's a high position, and just like any other position that's elected, it should be put with the public officials as well.
Okay, because it is definitely, if you look at Chicago, the city of Chicago versus the county of Cook,
right,
there are only 3 elected positions in the city.
Yeah.
The mayor, the treasurer, and I think it's the clerk. Everyone else is appointed.
Right.
And to be really blunt, it has nothing to do with Rahm being in the job, but that is a recipe for some malfeasance.
Yeah, it is. It's deep, and with this department being so unique, you should look at the officers who have climbed, who have received more education while they were on the job, and who transitioned to different positions in order to choose the superintendent, the one who's going to run the department, the one who's going to stand up for everyone on the department. If I have a hang up with and I knock no one's education and no one's experience, but to come to Chicago after all that experience and you never lived here or never lived here, it's a problem.
Or in a lot of cases, even dealt with a population that's similar, because Chicago has the 3rd largest police force in the nation.
And we are leading in crime. We just LA, New York, Chicago, and then out of the 3 top cities in the US, we're at the bottom as far as numbers, but we're at the top as far as crime. That's a problem.
And if you have not dealt with anything on that level, and even McCarthy had come from New York, correct?
Yes.
But like you were saying, even with that experience, New York's situation is different than Chicago's situation.
It is.
So, because I know they were arguing about the broken windows method he was attempting to use as far as policing strategy.
Yeah.
And they said it's not going to work here. And it didn't work here.
Right. And let me say this, the former superintendents are excellent bosses. Great. The wisdom is there, the knowledge is there. It's you can't bring a mindset of a different state or a different city to Chicago. Out of the 3 top cities in the US, we are the most segregated. And that goes way back into when Dr. King came in March. You have to handle Chicago differently. One of the greatest, 2 of the greatest mayors to ever be in control in Chicago was one Mayor Daley, and for 2.
We're talking about the second one.
The second, yeah, the son. Mayor Daley, the junior. Yeah.
Right. Don't have my mother get up and start walking over here talking about Mayor Daley the first.
Exactly, the second, and then Harold Washington, and they knew how Chicago works, and then they studied and looked at the bigger parameter and realized we're going to put the best person in place. And if you know through their tenure they were able to accomplish a lot because they knew how Chicago should be ran, and they knew which superintendent or which top cop will be able to handle crime in Chicago. And if you look at the history, they were both successful. And if you don't have the correct people in place when it comes to policing, your city will fail. And that's why they were two of the world's greatest mayors, because they knew who to put in place and who to communicate with and who connect with to make sure that their city was secure.
Body cams, dash cams. What do you think about this hoopla that they're talking about now? Why should everyone have to wear body cams? And some people are against it, some people are for it. Do you feel that wearing a body cam would change how you do your job?
Negative. That's a waste of finances. You can use that money for something else. If we train officers to communicate with civilians in the community with respect a little bit more, then we would need that. The reason for the body cams and the in-car cameras is to pretty much police the police, to make sure the police are saying and doing exactly what we train them to do. But if you don't train them fully and expect them to respect one another as well as respect civilians, then you would need those.
The mental health issue. I'm speaking from probation's perspective.
Okay.
I've seen a marked increase in clients that are being sentenced to probation that have mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a mental health unit, but they're not taking all those clients.
Okay.
Are you seeing an increase of civilians with mental health issues on the job now? And do you feel like everyone is equipped to handle that situation?
No, I shared this. I'm glad you said that. I shared this Saturday at a summit that I was at. 80s babies and 90s babies. That population have a huge percentage of drugs and alcohol in them when they were born. Leading us now to 2016. Now those babies are what, in their early 20s and
early 20s to early 30s.
Yes, and
he said he had to take a breath.
Yes, it's huge. It's out there. I deal with it at least 7 times a night. They're handicapped. It's an epidemic. They are training these young people to think that they need an SSI check to live, and then their parent are the beneficiaries who's supposed to pass down the money. Then that's a domestic after domestic after domestic. I think the state's attorney office should implement a counseling program for every offender and ex-offender who's been in and out the system since the 1980s. They need counseling. They need medication. They need help because of their livelihood and what happened to them when they were babies. And they are filling up the courtrooms.
Yes, they are.
And from domestic to felony to misdemeanor to traffic, and that's a huge percentage of this population. And we need, with the state's attorney's office, they need to implement a program where they should seek counseling, because it's now a huge epidemic. Mental health is an epidemic. It's not just an illness.
No.
It's an epidemic now.
And with the issue with the state budget and them cutting mental health facilities, it has become even worse, because Cook County Jail is the biggest mental health institution in the country.
Yes.
And that is because people that should be in treatment are in custody because there's nowhere else to go. And they are winding up committing offenses because they are not medicated, because they're not in counseling, because they have no help and they have nowhere to go.
Exactly.
And as a person who's a layman and is trained in law enforcement, but not necessarily in the nuances of mental health,
right? That's
a lot. That's a lot.
You need to write the book, because you see it, and I hear your passion. I see your energy. You can shed a light on this situation, because you deal with it. You deal with it. I did with it firsthand, and it's almost as if I'm passing it off to you, and you deal with it way more than I do, because I just pass it off to you. If you start writing this book, please let me get at least 2 pages.
I will,
because that's real. You just shine the light on what's going on in the world right
Yes.
now.
My mother taught on 61st and Langley, for those of you who don't know, at Sexton. And
Wow.
my mother taught the first,
I know that place.
yes, she taught the first group of Black Peace Stone Rangers.
Okay.
And she talked about how, because she taught from 1964 until 1994.
Okay.
And she talked about how the education system changed with the, not just the heroin and the crack epidemic in the 80s.
Yes.
Because she said back when she had the gangsters, she said they kept order for her.
Right.
They made sure nobody bothered her car. They respected her. But the dope game got so strong and got so different that when I was young, my mother, if there was a problem student, she would go to the home and knock on the door and talk to the parent.
Right.
And they would come up with an understanding and an agreement on how they want to help that child.
Yes.
But as she got towards the end of her career, she had parents that were incapable because they were going through their mental health issues. They were going through their substance abuse issues. She was teaching 6th and 7th grade. She had 12-year-olds that were financially supporting the house running dope.
Wow.
And
that's real.
What really took her out of the classroom was one day, a young man that he had gotten to 6th grade and could not read, which was already an abomination.
I see it.
And she said, look, let me work with you. I'm going to help you. We're going to learn this. He said, what do I need to learn how to read for? She said, to be a productive citizen and be, functioning, etc.
Right.
He said, tell me how much you make a paycheck. She said, why? She said, just tell me how much you make in 2 weeks. And she told him. He came back to her room 2 days later with that in cash and told her, tell me what I need to learn how to read for again.
Wow.
And it shattered her heart because she knew that he didn't expect to live to be 20.
Right.
But while he was living, he was going to run this game and make this money. So when we're looking at community, the community part of this, what I would like us to do is to shine the light back on us honestly.
Right.
And say, yes, there are officers out here that have killed, shot, abused the system. Yes. But we also have to say, we have to, like Jedediah Brown does, we have to get out here and deal with our own children, deal with our own neighbors, deal with our own problems. If you see someone has a mental health problem, identify some help for them.
True.
Don't just turn your back and try to protect your house, because I'm going to tell you something like the gentleman said it on the show prior on the Drive at 5. What you have and the people around you don't have, eventually they're coming for yours.
That's true.
And I've said it a multitude of ways, a multitude of times.
Being on the streets for 17 years and being Black, raised in a Black community by a Black family, the bottom line is we need to start raising our children ourselves. We get calls now, at least 3 calls a night, where a parent would say, come take my child out the house. Why are you calling the police to take your child out the house? This is your house. You raised, that's your baby. If your baby disrespects you, if your baby does nothing that you want your baby to do under your roof, then that's your issue. Now they didn't beat you, they didn't commit a crime, they didn't hurt you, but because your child is cursing and being ignorant and being disrespectful, why would you dial 911 and tell the police, hey, come get my child and take my child out the home? And then when we come and get ready to do what you asked us to do, now we're wrong for the way we handle the situation. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
And this is I start work at 10:30 p.m. and this goes on to 7 o'clock a.m. This is what I deal with. And then I have to cut the news on and listen to how the police department is misusing their badge. 0 to 60 real quick. I was raised in a single parent household. My mother was there for me. My grandmother was there for me. And not just for me, other family members are there for their children and their grandchildren, their nieces and nephews as well. And they raised us. It didn't take the police to raise us. But when you got 80% of the calls coming in because a parent want the police to step in because of their child, then that's a problem.
What do we have to do to make this safe for our community? What do we as the community have to contribute?
Just like I said Saturday at Bethel New Life, we have to talk to our relatives and our family members who are going through these situations, opposed to straying away from them. It doesn't take a stranger to knock on someone's door and say, hey, listen, what you're doing is wrong. What your children are doing is wrong. We on this block believe you should stop doing what you're doing. No, a relative who knows that their family member is doing wrong should be able to talk to their family member, opposed to a total stranger. We all have problems and we all have issues, but most importantly, we have family members with issues and problems, and we're not doing them any justice if we're not approaching our own. It takes a village, and everyone in the village is pretty much related. And if we can't talk to a cousin or aunt or a niece or a first cousin or a boyfriend or girlfriend, then we have a problem.
So, because I'm getting like to the bare bones of it. My girlfriend and I said, I'm taking the sheets off. We're gonna look at this dirty mattress.
I like that.
Number one, we have to own up to the responsibility of our own households. Number two, we have to own up to the responsibility of our extended households, which is the family member, the friend that we see is drowning.
True.
And offer some assistance.
Very true.
Number three, we have to get back to, I trust that if my son is out of line, that you stopped him with no intent to hurt him,
Yes.
defame him, disrespect him, demean him, but you stopped him to save him.
Yes.
Because I see this also, a lot of quote unquote grown people, chronologically grown, but I'm not going to, mentally, I'm not so sure,
Right.
are not operating from a place of goodness.
Okay.
And so now I don't trust what you said about my child because I see how shady you are on the block. And we have to get that. We have to change ourselves to address that. My mother told me a long time ago, now I understand why I can talk to pretty much anyone.
Right.
She used to live on 62nd and Evans.
Okay.
And there was a laundromat in the neighborhood. And she would take me when I was very little to the laundromat. And she said that back then they used to call them hobos, the alcoholics that just hang around.
Right.
And she would let me sit with them.
Okay.
And she said, because they weren't going to hurt you. They were actually going to protect you because they just thought you were a cute little kid.
Praise God. I see what you're saying.
And so now I don't look at you and say, is this old homeless bum? I look and say, hey, that could be my cousin Dee Dee. There by the grace of God go I, that could be my son if I was not here. So I don't look at people in that particular light. And that's not to clap myself on the back. It's saying there's a different perception that I have.
Right.
So if I look at you and say, I know Roger is doing what's in my son's best interest.
Okay.
See, I'm not going to come right out of my house with curlers swinging at you. I'm going to trust that you're doing the right thing. But we have to get back to that, firstly, internally, as grown people, because a whole lot of the disrespect that we see from these young people comes from the fact that they've seen so much disrespect from grown people.
Now you preaching.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that.
You said it.
And something that Farrakhan says to a degree, I'm not quoting him, but you would not have to deal with the disrespect of the police if we were handling our own house. Now, that's not to justify the ones that are, because y'all know I'm not.
Right.
But I am saying, like you said, if I have to call the police for my 10-year-old, it's a bigger problem than the police.
You better believe it.
Now, I know you have to get to your mentoring program. So we're going to take a break, and I'm going to come back with my money moment. From H. Cortez, financial mentor to the working class. But I thank you so much, Mr. Roger Washington, for spending a little time with me on the Straight No Chaser show on intellectualradio.com.
dance like Dave, dance like Dave, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall off. I'ma dance like Dave, dance like David, dance like Dave, dance like Dave, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall off.
So coolio like Keenan and Kel on. This ain't the type of dance you moving your belt on. While my jeans loose, could've sworn I had a belt on, but it's alright, like the Saved by the Bell song. Neck left and right, like I'm kicking a quirk. Knee and feet moving, but I'm at a jerk. Riding that beat like a wave, but don't know how to surf. My shoelace loose while I kick at the turf. You think you go hard, but I go bolder. Tired of all the lies and decent exposure. I'm higher than you've ever been before. That's the reason why I dance till my clothes hit the floor.
I'ma dance like Dave, dance like David, dance like Dave, dance like Dave, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall off. I'ma dance like Dave, dance like David, dance like Dave, dance like Dave, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall off.
They gon' mock, they gon' stare, they gon' persecute, but I don't care, I get loose, you could stone or shoot. You don't know the reason that I really spin around. I've been set free and my chains on the ground. Not a slave no more from the traps made. Now I got a fresh face, like a close shave. I don't need a club, I don't need a dance floor. Anytime, any place, that's what this ground for. Always on, man, I'm never gonna go out. Living that life so many dream about. We gon' take a trip, life on the other side. If you would only taste and see, then you would really fly.
I'ma dance like Dave, dance like David, dance like Dave, dance like Dave, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall off. I'ma dance like Dave, dance like David, dance like Dave, dance like Dave, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall off.
Yo danzo como David, danzo como David, danzo como David, yo danzo como David, como menso.
Ya esto es un nuevo juego, yo digo a mi ropa hasta luego, esto para serio. Caminando en la ciudad, pero no me llames paletero. Bailando y cantando, pero no me llames salsero. Hablo de vida nueva, nunca de dinero, nunca de sueño vacío. Hablo lo que quiero para decirte lo que hay dentro de mi pecho, causando mi baile todo el tiempo.
I'ma dance like Dave, dance like David, dance like Dave, dance like Dave, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall, till my clothes fall off. I'ma dance like Dave, dance like Dave.
Greetings, Real Ray and my Straight No Chaser family. It's your boy H. Cortez, the one and only financial health mentor to the working class, coming to you with tonight's Money Moment. Tonight, guys, let me first off apologize and say excuse my scraggly voice. I'm just overcoming strep throat, which I have never had before. And here's what's funny. This weekend, I literally had no voice at all. Now, that's not an unusual thing, except that I'm a youth basketball coach. And this weekend, we participated in one of the biggest basketball tournaments of the year, and I had no voice. Now, how does that relate to a money moment? Well, listen, I realized this weekend that I had not properly prepared my team to perform in my absence. So while I was struggling to communicate with my team, I realized they should have been better prepared to perform at an optimal level without me. And how does this relate to a money moment? Think about this. I'm a husband, I'm a father. My job is to provide and protect for my family. So if financially I'm unable to perform to generate income, what happens to my family? So I want all of you guys to think about this and think about it deeply. If you lose your ability to use your labor to produce income for your family, what happens to your family? So I have a couple suggestions. One thing I want you to think about is start finding and start learning how to build and produce non-wage income, right? Learn how to get your money working for you so that while you are in perfect health, while you do have good strength, while you're able to use your labor to generate income, I want you to start taking some of that income and start figuring out how to get your money working for you. Because the last thing your family needs is for you to physically be unable to produce an income and have to reduce their lifestyle to cope. Right? The way you can prevent that from happening is while you're in full vigor, start using your labor and the income that you're producing from your labor to create non-wage income. Start investing in income producing assets while you have the ability, so that when the day comes when you either no longer want to work, you're no longer physically able to work, or you're no longer needed to work by an employer, you will not have to reduce your lifestyle, because you will have built your non-wage income to a point that it will sustain your family, whether you roll over in bed or roll out of bed. So guys, I'm H. Cortez, financial health mentor to the working class. You're checking out the Straight No Chaser show with my girl Rhea Ray as your host. And until I talk to you next week, get your money up. Peace.
And that was H. Cortez, financial mentor to the working class. This is your host, Rhea Ray Harris, on the Straight No Chaser show. Now, before I leave, I want to read the 10 recommendations, the key recommendations that the task force made when they evaluated the Chicago Police Department. Number 1, to dismantle the existing IPRA, which is the Independent Police Review Authority, which reviews police misconduct allegations, and replace it with a fully transparent and accountable civilian agency. Now, call me jaded. I'm not so sure how that would be accomplished, but I appreciate that effort. Number 2, hire an inspector general to independently monitor and audit the department and its policing strategies, including watching for racial bias. Number 3, overhaul collective bargaining agreements that have impeded accountability, such as those that require complaint records to be destroyed. The union agreement says it has essentially turned the code of silence into official policy. Now, number 4, establish a mental health critical response unit and make changes in the 911 system so officers and dispatchers are better prepared to deal with mental health issues. Number 5, create a department deputy chief of diversity and inclusion, which this is what most other large companies and organizations already do, which the main responsibility is for overseeing minority recruitment and promotion efforts. Number 6, use data to create an intervention system so that the department can identify problem officers earlier. I'm going to come back to that one. Number 7, make officer complaints and discipline histories available online for the public. Number 9, create a hotline run by a third party for Chicago Police Department members, both civilian and officers, to file complaints. Right now, there is no whistleblower protection for officers in the Chicago Police Force. And number 10, fine-tune Chicago's new policy to release videos of police-involved incidents within 60 days. Now, when Mr. Washington was here, we talked about, from a standpoint of persons who have been in the law enforcement field for a long, long time. He's been in 17 and I've been even longer. And that's different from the average civilian, because you don't see what is seen behind the glass door, so to speak. But in no way is he, and I am going to speak for him, or I, justifying the shootings and the mistreatment by any Chicago police officer or Cook County adult probation officer for that matter. The question is, though, are there more things we need to do as a community to make sure that we handle things so that they don't get out of hand? Him saying that he gets that number of calls a night to deal with people's children who have not committed any violent offense against them is a parenting issue. And that's a community issue. That's a problem. But on the other hand, when you have officers that have 15 to 20 complaints in their jacket and they are not disciplined ever and they're not punished ever, that's a problem that I don't know how they thought was going to just go away, but I guess it has been going away for years, because there's a system set up with IPRA, which used to be the Office of Professional Standards, OPS, that allowed a lot of officers to just go back to the job. So between the community not just handling its own children and young people on one hand, and something I've been saying for a little while off the air, which is for those people that are retired or not currently working, for them to go to these city council meetings to lift positions for money for these lawsuits. Bring that information back to the community so that everyone else knows, and then we can see what's really happening, because right now there is very little transparency, because we have to right now work as the community unit, and hopefully this new superintendent can bring us a little closer for a cohesive community and policing unit. But right now, the community has to work on fixing the community, and then we can do the legal action against any officer that operates unjustly. And with that, I only have one more thing to say. I am the MC for the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful event of Cruising with Coach Remy, presented by the Ultimate Girls Social Networking event. This is a Caribbean-style, all-white affair for ladies, August 13th, 2016, from 7 to 11 p.m. aboard the Mystic Blue cruise ship at Chicago's Navy Pier. This is a dinner, dancing, and networking opportunity. The cost is $150. It's for women only with a $50 deposit. Go to www.getsassy, SASSY, with Remy, REMI.com to pay your deposit as soon as possible. This will have women business owners, moms, and single ladies looking to escape their everyday reality by enjoying a night of sacred self-care time, as well as the illusion of being on a Caribbean island. We're also looking for 5 business owners who may want to showcase their businesses in a 5-minute informational about what they do, which will cost $100, and they will also have their business information in the swag bags. So if you're looking to have a fun evening of dinner, dancing, and networking with a Caribbean theme with other business-minded ladies, go to www.getsassywithremy.com and pay your deposits. And on that note, I'm going to close out for the evening. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Straight No Chaser show on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio station. Dedicate yourselves to the truth, no matter the cost. This is Rhea Ray Harris, signing off for the evening. Be safe, everyone.
I'ma dance like Dave, dance like Dave.